So the Prime Minister's message to the nation is on the vaccine milestone that we hit yesterday of 1 billion vaccine doses, highlighting our journey really in getting to this stage. The Prime Minister's highlighted how there was no VIP culture, how we overcame vaccine hesitancy, how we ensured that everyone went the last mile to get vaccines and to ensure that vaccines reached every person in the country. The Prime Minister making a special mention of our healthcare workers as well as everyone else, our scientists who worked so hard in ensuring this moment was possible. Prime Minister Narendra Modi in his 20-minute address also there highlighting how the world is watching India, how the world is watching this successful vaccination drive and learning from it. This is the Prime Minister's address, which lasted for about 20 minutes. As expected, it was on the historic moment that we achieved yesterday of 1 billion vaccine doses. Another very important message from the Prime Minister that's come in that speech is about ensuring that everyone is made aware, especially those who've not gotten the vaccine yet. The Prime Minister said that if you and I have received the vaccine, if we've gotten the jab, it's also our duty to ensure that we make others who are still hesitant to get the vaccine to go out there and get the jab immediately. And that's a very, very important message because it's the Prime Minister saying that we still need to do a lot to ensure that we fight together against coronavirus. Rahul Shrivastava is joining us, our National Affairs editor, on this broadcast. Rahul, as expected, the Prime Minister, speaking about that huge vaccine achievement yesterday, but a number of big takeaways. One is, while he's highlighted, what it's taken for us to get to this point, all of the hurdles that we've overcome in our vaccine drive, he's also said it's equally important to look ahead and to identify the challenges ahead.
You see, if you see the Prime Minister's speech, it is in consonance with what he has done since last year, 2020, his first address. I think it was on the 19th of March 2020 when he announced the lockdowns. There is a consistent element of caution. Also, it's a big moment definitely for the government, because if you recall in June when he spoke last, addressed the nation live, at that time there was a gloom of despair as India had battled one of the worst medical crises in the country in terms of demand for oxygen, ventilators and other medical therapeutic facilities. And at that time the Prime Minister had taken the charge, facing tremendous amount of political flack, not just national but international also. And at that time the Prime Minister had taken the task of stepping up the vaccination drive and also enforcing greater medical supplies in terms of equipment and others. There has been a long journey which has been traversed since June this year, in which definitely the Prime Minister is talking about the 100 crore vaccines and how India is today the talk of the world. Also the fact that there were many doubters who used to say that India will not be able to take the onslaught of a pandemic. The pandemic posed unprecedented challenges in terms it was invisible and it was unknown. And whether India, which was largely an importer of technology in terms of vaccine, but was a pharmacy hub, but never created its own vaccine, has actually been able to meet the demands and create a benchmark of 100 crore vaccines by domestically meeting the demands of vaccine in the country. But I think the biggest takeaway from this message today by the Prime Minister, apart from the strong caution that he sounded in terms of wearing the mask, adhering to the protocols, is how he has used the 100 crore vaccine mark achieved domestically to create a new appeal for made in India. I think that is a very, very important takeaway, that he is signaling to the country that if we have been able to meet the demand of vaccine in a very short while by domestically creating it, manufacturing it and delivering it against all odds, this is perhaps a moment where Made in India can see a new spiraling out in terms of India accepting more and more products which are made in the country. It's a very, very critical juncture economically, Akshata, primarily because if the government has announced a slew of measures since May last year, there has been only one clear message, that the economy needs to scale up to meet the challenges in terms of the downturn which were witnessed. And after that, there has been a definitely swing in the global economy in which India could well become the next very critical investment junction. And that is why Made in India is a very, very important critical element, because the MSMEs and others which are virtually the backbone of the economy, the larger employers in the country, if they go through a Made in India surge, definitely the economy will see a turnaround which is unprecedented. I think the Prime Minister has done a very clever political job of linking 100 crore vaccine mark as an achievement for his government into sending out a message for tomorrow in terms how, with a sense of caution, India can achieve certain economic goals which can be good for the country.
I also want to focus, Rahul, on how the Prime Minister has shot down all the critics, all the naysayers in our vaccine journey. You know, he's made a specific mention there saying that, you know, many doubted our capabilities. Many doubted whether we'd be able to vaccinate the entire adult population, as the government had said, by the end of this year. We are well on track for that. And the Prime Minister has also said that there were, you know, so many efforts to spread panic, so many efforts to spread rumors. There were hiccups, and he's acknowledged that as well.
Yes, actually, a very important point. Primarily, if you see the period between in January the vaccination drive started, and even till April, when the second phase was rampaging through the country, and there were cries of agony all over the nation in cities, villages, and semi-urban areas. And at that time, it looked extremely grim. The picture looked extremely grim, because at that time the national average daily was nearly 10 lakh odd vaccines delivered every day. And it was actually at times when we found that for some days in several critical states like Maharashtra, which have been one of the strongest, the hotbeds as far as the spread of the pandemic is concerned, there were periods of lull where there were virtually no only barely a few thousand vaccines delivered in a day. And at that time, it looked that India may actually be taking tremendous amount of effort to reach that 70% vaccination mark, to reach herd immunity. And in fact, the assessment was, at that time we used to say, an uphill task of touching 1 crore vaccines every day. By December, then only India will be able to vaccinate 70% of its population. And this 100 crore mark looked extremely distant and difficult. I think definitely what Prime Minister in his article also today and his speech has mentioned, that it has taken a great amount of teamwork by all the stakeholders, the manufacturers, the government putting in money in terms of advance payments to the vaccine manufacturers, stepping up technology. Imagine, Akshita, 100 crore vaccines carried through a cold chain system all over the country. There are remote hills in the country. There are areas which are inaccessible. It has taken tremendous amount of effort by state governments, health department officials, ordinary health workers and others to actually make that possible. Prime Minister, interestingly, in his article today has mentioned that if you look at 100 crore vaccines, each vaccine taking 2 minutes, it's close to 41 lakh man days and 11,000 years of man years actually to have done that. And that's the kind of effort which has gone in. And I think perhaps the Prime Minister, who had taken a lot of flack in April to June period last year over a lax vaccine drive, today definitely was standing up and telling everybody that you might have criticized me, but my government has achieved it.